The cargo freighter Zenith Dawn drifted through the outer reaches like a piece of forgotten debris. Its hull bore the scars of 1,000 asteroid belts, and its engines coughed plasma in stuttering bursts. Captain Jor-El of the then Nyx Confederacy stood on the bridge, his triple-jointed fingers tapping against the command console. The ship had been adrift for 6 cycles now, ever since the hyperdrive core cracked during a supply run to the colony worlds. "Status report," Jor-El said, his voice a low rumble that echoed in his chest cavity. "Life support at 40%, replied Ensign Vecca, her mandibles clicking nervously. "Oxygen reserves critical. We have maybe 2 days before we start suffocating." Jor-El's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. 2 days. The nearest Confederate outpost was 5 days away, even if they could somehow jury-rig the engines. He looked at the crew scattered across the bridge. 12 souls. 12 species from across the known galaxy. All of them depending on him to find a miracle. "Send another distress beacon," he ordered. "Sir, we've sent 17 already. No one's coming. We're too far out." Jor-El knew she was right. This region of space was a dead zone, avoided by most commercial traffic due to the gravitational anomalies and rogue planetoids. They'd only taken this route because it shaved 2 weeks off their delivery schedule. Now that decision might cost them everything. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of failing systems. Jor-El closed his eyes and prepared to compose a final message to his brood family when the communications officer suddenly shrieked. "Contact! Unknown vessel approaching at sublight speed." Every head on the bridge turned. On the view screen, a ship emerged from the darkness. It was small, barely larger than a shuttle, with a design unlike anything in the Confederate database. Its hull was smooth and white, marked with blue symbols and a strange flag bearing red stripes and white stars on a blue field. "Hail them," Jor-El commanded. Static crackled. Then a voice came through, speaking in broken but understandable Galactic Common. This is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Navy, aboard the patrol craft Defiant. We picked up your distress signal. Do you require assistance?" "Earth." Jor-El's translator took a moment to process the word. "Earth. The Death World. The planet every Confederate citizen learned about in xenobiology as a cautionary tale. A world so hostile that its dominant species had evolved to be nearly indestructible. Gravity that would crush a then Nyx. Oxygen levels that would burn Krev lungs. Predators that hunted in packs. And the humans themselves, bipedal creatures who could run for days, heal from wounds that would kill any civilized being, and whose very sweat was toxic to most bacteria. Yes, Jor-El managed. Our hyperdrive is destroyed. Life support failing. We have 2 days of oxygen remaining." There was a pause. Then the human spoke again. "Copy that, Zenith Dawn. We're coming alongside. Prepare for boarding. We'll assess the situation and render aid." Boarding. The word sent a ripple of fear through the crew. Humans were known to be powerful, yes, but also unpredictable. Violent. Their species had unified their planet only after thousands of years of warfare. Even now, barely a century after achieving interstellar flight, they were regarded by most galactic powers as dangerous primitives. But Jor-El had no choice. "Understood, Commander Chen. We appreciate your assistance." 20 minutes later, the airlock cycled open. Jor-El and his chief engineer waited in the corridor, backed by 2 security officers armed with stunners. Just in case. The human who stepped through was smaller than Jor-El expected. She stood perhaps 2 meters tall, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bundle and skin the color of burnt copper. She wore a fitted blue uniform and carried a large pack on her back. Her eyes, brown and startlingly expressive, swept across the group with sharp intelligence. "Captain Jor-El," she said, extending a hand. Jor-El stared at the appendage. 5 fingers. No claws. soft skin. It looked so fragile. Yes, he replied, carefully touching her hand with two of his own fingers. The human's grip was firm. Shockingly firm. Jor-El felt the strength in those fingers and realized she was holding back considerably. "Lieutenant Commander Chen," she said with a quick smile that showed flat white teeth. "My crew is running a diagnostic on your ship's systems. Can you show me to your engine room?" "Your crew?" Jor-El glanced past her. Two more humans emerged from the airlock, both male, both carrying equipment cases that looked heavy even by human standards. "Petty Officer Jackson and Ensign Rodriguez," Chen said. "Best engineers in the fleet." "Well, best in our patrol group anyway." The two humans nodded. Jackson was pale with yellow hair, while Rodriguez had darker skin and kind eyes. Both smiled at the Van Nyx crew, seemingly unaware of how their mere presence was intimidating. Jor-El led them through the corridors. The humans moved with disturbing ease despite the ship's gravity being set nearly 30% higher than Earth standard. They didn't even seem to notice. In the engine room, the chief engineer, a crystalline Voth named Shekra, was waiting. She chimed in distress as the humans approached. "It's all right," Jor-El said quickly in Voth speech. "They're here to help." Chen knelt beside the cracked hyperdrive core, her eyes scanning the damaged components. Jackson and Rodriguez immediately began unpacking their equipment, pulling out tools and diagnostic devices. "This is a Covarian Mark 7 drive," Chen said, running her fingers along the fractured casing. "Old model, but reliable. The core housing is completely shattered though. You must have hit something hard." "Micrometeor shower," Jor-El explained. "Came out of nowhere. Punched through the aft shielding before we could react." Chen nodded, already pulling out a handheld scanner. She worked quickly, her movements precise and efficient. After a few minutes, she stood and turned to Jor-El. "Bad news first. Your hyperdrive is dead. Even if we had a replacement core, which we don't, the entire assembly is compromised. You'd need a shipyard to fix this properly." Jor-El's heart sank. "And the good news? We can tow you," Chen said. "The Defiant isn't designed for it, but we've got enough power to get you to the nearest station. There's a trading post about 3 days from here, just inside Confederate space. They'll have life support supplies and can arrange for a proper tow to a repair facility." 3 days, Vecca said from the doorway. "But we only have 2 days of oxygen." Chen turned to her and smiled. It was a strange expression, showing teeth, but somehow it seemed reassuring. "That's where the really good news comes in," she said. "We're carrying emergency atmospheric processors. Compact units designed for colony establishment. We can set up 2 of them in your environmental systems and boost your oxygen production by 300%. You'll have plenty of air." Jor-El stared at her. "You would give us your colony equipment?" "We're a patrol craft, Captain. We don't establish colonies. These units are emergency backup, and this qualifies as an emergency." Chen glanced at her crew. "Jackson, Rodriguez, get the processors from Cargo Bay 2. Let's get these people breathing easy again." The 2 humans nodded and jogged away, moving at a pace that would have winded most species within minutes. Over the next 4 hours, Jor-El watched in amazement as the humans worked. They moved through the ship with tireless energy, installing the atmospheric processors, running diagnostic checks, and even repairing several minor hull breaches that Jor-El's crew hadn't had time to address. They worked without complaint despite the heavy gravity, the thin air by their standards, and the uncomfortable heat that the Van Nyx preferred. Chen herself seemed to be everywhere at once, coordinating repairs, checking on the crew, and even helping carry heavy equipment that should have required a loading mech. When Ensign Vecca collapsed from exhaustion, Chen caught her before she hit the deck and carried her to the medical bay like she weighed nothing. "Your species is remarkable," Jor-El said when Chen returned to the bridge. She laughed, a bright sound that was surprisingly pleasant. "We're persistent, I'll give you that. Comes from evolving on a planet that tried to kill us every day. I've read the reports, Jor-El admitted. Your world's gravity alone would crush most beings. Earth is tough, Chen agreed. But it made us tougher. You adapt or you die. Humans are really, really good at adapting. The atmospheric processors hummed to life, and Jor-El felt the air immediately begin to clear. The oxygen content started climbing on his readouts. Within an hour, it would be back to safe levels. We'll begin the tow in the morning, Chen said, checking her wrist device. My crew needs rest, and I imagine yours does too. We'll have you at the trading post in 3 days, safe and sound. Why? Jor-El asked suddenly. Why help us? You owe us nothing. Our species barely trade. We're not allies. Chen looked at him with those expressive brown eyes and smiled again. Because you needed help, she said simply. And because that's what humans do. The morning cycle brought new surprises. Jor-El woke to find Lieutenant Commander Chen and her crew already awake, moving through the zenith dawn with the same tireless energy they'd shown the day before. He'd checked the chronometer twice, certain he'd made an error. The humans had worked for 16 hours straight yesterday, then slept for only 4 hours before beginning again. When he mentioned this to Chen over a shared meal in the mess hall, she simply shrugged. 4 hours is plenty, she said, spooning something from a ration pack into her mouth. We can function on less if needed. During my academy survival training, we went 72 hours without sleep during a mock rescue operation. Jor-El's 4 eyes widened. 72 hours. That would kill most species. It's not comfortable, Chen admitted with a grin. But humans are stubborn. Our bodies produce adrenaline and other chemicals that keep us going when we need to push through. Evolution's gift from a world where predators hunted at night and dangers never slept. Vecca entered the mess hall, her mandibles clicking in what Jor-El recognized as amazement. Commander Chen, your ensign Rodriguez just carried 3 compressed air canisters from storage. Each one weighs 200 kilograms. He carried all 3. At once. Chen barely looked up from her meal. Rodriguez played football in college. Linebacker position. He's used to carrying heavy loads while people try to knock him down. Football? Jor-El asked. A game where humans run into each other at high speed for entertainment, Chen explained. Players wear protective gear, but injuries are still common. Broken bones, torn muscles, concussions. Rodriguez broke his leg twice during his college career. And he still played. Vecca's voice rose in pitch. Of course. He loved it. Chen smiled at their expressions. Humans are weird about pain. We feel it, definitely, but we're really good at ignoring it when we need to. Our pain tolerance is abnormally high compared to most species we've met. Jor-El thought about the reports he'd read. Stories of human soldiers continuing to fight with wounds that should have incapacitated them. Construction workers who'd survived falls that would shatter a Thanix's entire skeletal structure. Athletes who played through injuries that would hospitalize any Confederate citizen. Your species frightens me, he admitted quietly. Chen's expression softened. I know. We frighten a lot of species. But Captain, fear and respect aren't the same thing. Yes, humans are tough. Yes, we come from a death world. But that same environment that made us strong also taught us compassion. We know what it's like to struggle, to suffer, to fight for survival. That's why we help. Because we remember when we needed help too. Before Jor-El could respond, Jackson's voice crackled over the comm system. Commander, you need to see this. We've got a problem. Chen was on her feet instantly, moving toward the bridge with Jor-El scrambling to keep up. When they arrived, Jackson was pointing at a sensor readout, his face grim. 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace, he said. Bearing 270. They're on an intercept course. Jor-El felt his blood chill as he looked at the sensor data. The ship configurations were unmistakable. Krovic raiders. Pirates who preyed on damaged vessels in the outer reaches, stripping them for parts and selling crews into slavery. How long until they reach us? Chen asked, her voice suddenly cold and professional. 18 minutes at their current speed, Jackson replied. Chen tapped her wrist device. Chen to Defiant. We have hostiles inbound. 3 Krovic raiders. Prepare for combat operations. A male voice responded immediately. Understood, Commander. Weapons hot, shields charging. Orders. Jor-El stepped forward. Commander Chen, your ship is a patrol craft. Those are military-grade raiders, each one heavily armed. You should detach the tow cables and run. Save yourselves. Chen turned to look at him, and for the first time, Jor-El saw something dangerous in those brown eyes. Something predatory. Captain Jor-El, with respect, running isn't what humans do. We have 12 souls aboard this ship who need protection, and 3 pirates who made a very poor choice today. Your ship is outnumbered 3 to 1. Yes, Chen said calmly. They should have brought more ships. She tapped her comm again. All hands, return to the Defiant immediately. Rodriguez, Jackson, back to the ship. We've got company. The 2 human engineers moved fast, gathering their equipment and jogging toward the airlock. Chen remained on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the sensor display. Commander, Jor-El said urgently. Please, I cannot allow you to sacrifice yourselves for us. We are not worth. Captain. Chen's voice cut through his protest like a blade. Every life is worth protecting. That's not negotiable. Now, I need you to take your ship and angle away from the raiders at maximum sublight speed. Put as much distance between you and them as possible. My ship will handle the intercept. Against 3 raiders? Chen smiled, and this time it was all teeth. Captain, humans didn't claw our way to the top of Earth's food chain by running away from fights. We did it by being the scariest thing in the jungle. Watch and learn. She moved toward the airlock, then paused and turned back. Captain Jor-El, in about 15 minutes, you're going to see why most of the galaxy considers Earth a death world and humans a warrior species. Try not to be too alarmed. We're on your side. Then she was gone, moving through the airlock with smooth efficiency. Jor-El watched on the viewscreen as the small human patrol craft detached its tow cables and moved to intercept the raiders. The Defiant was less than half the size of each Krovic ship, its weapons limited to defensive railguns and a handful of missiles. Against 3 heavily armed raiders, it should have been slaughter. Sir, Vecca whispered. They're going to die. I know, Jor-El said quietly. Foolish, brave humans. The Krovic ship spread into an attack formation, their plasma cannons charging with malevolent red light. The Defiant accelerated directly toward them, not dodging, not weaving, just driving straight into the teeth of their formation like a spear. Krovic lead ship is hailing us, the communications officer reported. Put them through. A scarred Krovic face appeared on screen, its reptilian features twisted in a predatory grin. Confederate vessel, you are damaged and helpless. Surrender your cargo and crew, and we will grant you a quick death. Resist, and we will. The transmission cut off as the Defiant opened fire. Jor-El had seen space combat before. He'd witnessed Confederate warships engaging in battle, watched the careful dance of shields and weapons, the calculated exchanges of fire. This was nothing like that. The human ship moved like a living thing, rolling and diving with impossible agility. Its railguns spat depleted uranium rounds at relativistic speeds, each shot placed with surgical precision. The first salvo took out the lead raider's shield generator. The second shredded its port weapons array. The third punched through its bridge. All in the span of 4 seconds. The remaining 2 raiders opened fire, plasma bolts filling space with deadly energy. The Defiant jinked sideways, the human pilot pulling maneuvers that should have liquefied the crew from G-forces. Several bolts grazed the human ship's shields, but none found solid contact. How are they moving like that? Vecca breathed. Those acceleration forces should kill them. Death World species, Jor-El murmured, unable to look away. They evolved under high gravity. Their bodies can withstand forces that would turn us into paste. The Defiant launched missiles. Not at the raiders, but into the space between them, detonating in a carefully timed sequence that created an expanding debris field. The raiders split formation to avoid the shrapnel, exactly as the humans must have predicted. Chen's voice crackled over the open comm channel, broadcast to all ships. Kravik vessels, this is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Navy. You have attacked a ship under human protection. You have one chance to withdraw. Leave now, or I will introduce you to a human concept called disproportionate response. The raiders responded with another volley of plasma fire. Understood, Chen said, her voice still calm. Don't say I didn't warn you. What happened next would be analyzed in Confederate military academies for years to come. The Defiant executed a maneuver that the sensors struggled to track, using its maneuvering thrusters to spin along its axis while maintaining forward momentum. Its railguns never stopped firing, creating a whirling storm of hypersonic projectiles. The second raider's engines exploded. The third lost its weapons arrays and half its hull plating. Then the human ship did something truly insane. It rammed the third raider. Not a collision. A calculated strike, using the Defiant's reinforced prow to crack the raider's weakened hull like an eggshell, then pulling away before the damaged ship's reactor could breach. The third raider began tumbling, atmosphere venting from a dozen hull breaches. The second raider, engines damaged but still functional, tried to run. The Defiant pursued, matching its every dodge and weave, railguns methodically destroying its weapons, its engines, its communications array. Within minutes, the raider was a helpless hulk drifting in space. 3 military-grade raiders. Defeated in less than 8 minutes. By a single patrol craft with a crew of 12 humans. Chen's voice returned to the calm, Zenith Dawn, this is Defiant. Hostile vessels neutralized. Are you harmed? Jor-El realized his hands were shaking. No, Commander. We are unharmed. That was. Standard defensive maneuvers, Chen said, as if she hadn't just accomplished the impossible. We're scanning for survivors among the raiders. If we find any, we'll take them into custody and transfer them to Confederate authorities at the trading post. Commander Chen, Jor-El said slowly. I have served in the Confederate Navy for 30 years. I have never seen combat like that. Your tactics, your ship handling, your ferocity. Is this normal for humans? There was a pause. Then Chen spoke, her voice thoughtful. Captain, humans have been fighting wars since before we discovered fire. For most of our history, we were our own worst enemies. We've refined the art of combat across thousands of years and countless conflicts. When Earth finally unified and we reached the stars, we brought all that experience with us. So yes, this is normal for us. We're very, very good at fighting. And yet you use this ability to protect strangers, Jor-El said quietly. Because we're also very, very good at compassion, Chen replied. The same stubbornness that makes us dangerous in combat makes us loyal to those we protect. You called for help, Captain. That made you our responsibility. And humans don't abandon their responsibilities. The Defiant reattached the tow cables and resumed course for the trading post. Inside the Zenith Dawn, Jor-El's crew gathered on the bridge, staring at the view screen in stunned silence. Sir, Vecca said finally. What are humans, really? Jor-El thought about Chen's smile, her crew's tireless work, their willingness to risk everything for strangers. He thought about the destroyed raiders and the impossible combat maneuvers. Humans, he said slowly, are what happens when a death world creates a species tough enough to survive it, smart enough to master it, and compassionate enough to care about others despite everything their world taught them about cruelty. They are the most dangerous protectors in the galaxy. Should we fear them? Vecca asked. Jor-El watched the small human ship towing them through space, its crew already back to work on repairs and maintenance, never resting, never complaining. No, he said finally. We should be grateful they're on our side. The trading post emerged from the darkness like a small city floating in space. Dozens of ships clustered around its docking arms, their running lights creating constellations against the black. The structure itself was a mismatched collection of modules and platforms, built up over decades by independent traders and prospectors. It was neutral territory, governed by the Merchant Council rather than any single government. Jor-El stood on the bridge of the Zenith Dawn, watching as Chen expertly guided both ships toward an assigned docking berth. 3 days had passed since the encounter with the Kravik raiders, and those days had fundamentally changed how Jor-El viewed the humans. He'd watched Chen and her crew work without complaint, sleeping in shifts of only a few hours, sharing their rations when the Zenith Dawn's food synthesizers failed, and teaching Jor-El's engineers human tricks for coaxing life from dying systems. Jackson had jury-rigged the environmental controls using spare parts and what he called, good old-fashioned human ingenuity. Rodriguez had spent 14 hours straight reinforcing the hull breaches with a welding technique he'd learned in his father's construction business. And Chen, she'd spent hours with each crew member, learning their names, their stories, their hopes. She'd comforted Vecca when the young ensign broke down crying from stress. She'd played a strategy game with the Voth engineer Shekra, losing gracefully despite clearly being brilliant. She'd shared stories of Earth with anyone who would listen, painting pictures of blue oceans and green forests, of cities that touched the sky and music that moved the soul. Docking complete, Chen's voice came through the comm, Captain Jor-El, the trading post has medical facilities and a full-service shipyard. I've already contacted them about your situation. They'll have a repair crew ready within the hour. Commander Chen, please come aboard, Jor-El said. I would speak with you before you depart. 10 minutes later, Chen stood in Jor-El's ready room, still wearing her blue uniform, still projecting that calm confidence that seemed innate to her species. Jor-El had prepared a speech, but looking at her now, the words scattered. You saved us, he said simply. Twice. First from suffocation, then from the raiders. My crew would be dead or enslaved without your intervention. I have no way to repay this debt. Chen shook her head. Captain, there's no debt. We helped because it was the right thing to do. That's all. But why? Jor-El pressed. Your species barely knows us. The Van Nix Confederacy has no alliance with Earth. We've traded perhaps a dozen times in the last decade. Why risk your lives, your ship, your resources for strangers? Chen walked to the viewport, staring out at the trading post's lights. When she spoke, her voice was soft, almost distant. Captain, humanity almost destroyed itself. Multiple times. We came so close to extinction that for a while, scientists thought we might have actually gone extinct in several regions of Earth. Wars, plagues, environmental collapse, we did it all to ourselves. We were brilliant and stupid in equal measure. She turned back to face him. But we survived. And somewhere along the way, we learned something important. We learned that survival isn't just about being strong or smart or tough. It's about working together. It's about helping others, even when it costs you. Because eventually, you might be the one who needs help. When humanity finally reached the stars and found we weren't alone, we made a choice. We could be conquerors, like we'd been to each other for so long. Or we could be something better. We could be protectors, helpers, friends. We chose the latter. Not because we're saints, we're not, but because we remembered what it felt like to be helpless and afraid. Jor-El felt something tighten in his chest. Your species truly is remarkable. We're just stubborn, Chen said with a smile. Too stubborn to let good people die when we can prevent it. Too stubborn to walk away from someone in trouble. Too stubborn to accept that the universe has to be cruel and uncaring. We decided to make it better, one rescue at a time. A chime sounded at the door. Vecca entered, her mandibles clicking excitedly. "Captain, the station master wants to speak with you. He says the Confederate Navy is sending a cruiser to escort us home. They heard about the raider attack and want a full report." Jor-El nodded. "Tell him I'll contact him shortly." After Vecca left, Chen extended her hand again. This time, Jor-El took it without hesitation, clasping it firmly. "If you're ever in Earth space," Chen said, "look me up. I'll show you what a death world looks like when its people decide to make it beautiful instead of deadly. We've got mountains that touch the sky, oceans deeper than space is black, and cities where 1,000 species live together in peace. We've come a long way from the violent primitives we used to be." "I would like that very much," Jor-El said. "And Commander, if you ever need assistance, the Van Nix Confederacy will remember what humanity did for us today. You have allies now, whether you sought them or not." Chen grinned. "Captain, I think that's the start of something good." Over the next hour, the trading post buzzed with activity. The story of the human patrol craft that had defeated 3 Kravik raiders was already spreading through the station's bars and merchant halls. Jor-El heard it repeated a dozen times, each version more embellished than the last. But the core truth remained: a single human ship had accomplished what should have been impossible. Jor-El watched from the observation deck as the Defiant prepared to depart. Chen and her crew had refused any payment, though the Merchant Council had offered a substantial reward for eliminating the raiders. They'd restocked their supplies, filed their report, and were ready to return to patrol. "Sir," Vecca said, standing beside him. "I've been researching Earth and humans. Did you know their planet has weather systems that can destroy entire cities? Storms with winds that exceed the speed of sound. Waves of water tall enough to swallow ships. Ground that shakes and splits open. And humans just live there. Build cities there. Raise families there." "I know," Jor-El said quietly. "They have predators that weigh several tons and can run at highway speeds. Tiny insects that can kill with a single bite. Plants that can poison you just from touching them. The ocean has creatures with enough venom to kill hundreds of humans, and they still swim in it. For fun." "I know. Sir, their own star is trying to kill them. They have to coat themselves in protective chemicals just to go outside on sunny days, or the radiation will burn their skin and give them cancer. And they still go outside. They still explore. They still play and laugh and live." Jor-El turned to look at his young ensign. "What's your point, Vecca?" She gestured at the Defiant, now beginning to pull away from the dock. "My point is that a species tough enough to thrive on a death world, smart enough to master space travel in just a few centuries, and kind enough to risk everything for strangers, those are the people I want as allies. Those are the people I want on our side when things go wrong. Because humans don't give up. They don't quit. They don't abandon people who need help." "No," Jor-El agreed, watching the human ship accelerate into the darkness. "They certainly don't." 3 weeks later, Jor-El sat in a Confederate Navy briefing room on his homeworld of Van Nix Prime. Before him sat Admiral Korath, the Supreme Commander of the Confederate Fleet, along with several high-ranking intelligence officers. They'd spent the last 2 hours going over every detail of the encounter with Chen and the Defiant. "Let me make sure I understand," Admiral Korath said, her voice skeptical. "A single human patrol craft, crew of 12, defeated 3 Kravik raiders in under 8 minutes?" "Correct, Admiral. Using only standard defensive weapons?" "Correct. And they did this while protecting your damaged vessel?" "Yes, Admiral." Korath leaned back in her chair, her 4 eyes studying Jor-El carefully. "Captain, you've served with distinction for 3 decades. Your record is impeccable. But this story strains credibility. The Kravik use military-grade ships. Each one is a match for our light cruisers. You're telling me one human ship defeated 3 of them? Admiral, I witnessed it myself. My entire crew witnessed it. The sensor logs confirm everything. The humans moved their ship in ways that should have killed them from G-forces alone. They fired with precision I've never seen outside of our most advanced combat simulations. And they did it all while simultaneously towing us to safety. One of the intelligence officers spoke up. We've been monitoring human military developments since they achieved interstellar flight. Their technology is impressive, certainly, but not vastly superior to ours. How do you explain this level of combat effectiveness? Jor-El thought about Chen's words, about humanity's thousands of years of warfare, their evolution on a world that tried to kill them daily. It's not just their technology, he said slowly. It's them. Humans are physically capable of withstanding forces that would incapacitate us. Their reaction times are faster. Their endurance is greater. They can function on minimal sleep, sustain themselves on limited rations, and push their bodies beyond what any Confederate species considers possible. Add to that thousands of years of combat experience, and you have a species that's naturally suited for warfare. A dangerous species, another officer muttered. A dangerous ally, Jor-El corrected firmly. Admiral, Commander Chen and her crew risked their lives for strangers. They could have fled when the raiders appeared. They had no obligation to help us. But they stayed. They fought. They protected us. And when it was over, they refused any reward. They simply returned to their patrol route, looking for others who might need help. Admiral Karath was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. The Confederate Council has been debating whether to pursue closer ties with Earth. Some argue that humans are too unpredictable, too violent. Others believe they could be valuable allies. This incident will certainly inform that debate. She stood, and Jor-El rose with her. Captain Jor-El, you and your crew are being awarded the Star of Merit for surviving an encounter with Kravik raiders. Additionally, I'm recommending you for a position in our diplomatic corps. We're going to need people who understand humans, and you've had more meaningful contact with them than most of our citizens. Admiral, if I may make a recommendation. Speak. Open formal alliance negotiations with Earth. Not because we need their military strength, though that would certainly be valuable. But because humanity represents something rare in the galaxy. They're a species that chooses compassion over conquest. They've known violence intimately, and they've rejected it in favor of cooperation. Those are the values the Confederacy claims to uphold. If we mean it, we should embrace humans as kindred spirits. Karath nodded slowly. Your recommendation will be noted. Dismissed, Captain. 6 months later, Jor-El stood on the observation deck of the Confederate diplomatic vessel Unity, watching Earth grow larger in the viewscreen. The planet was striking, a blue and green jewel wrapped in white clouds, so different from the red and brown worlds that dominated then Nick's space. It's beautiful, Vecca said beside him. She'd requested to join the diplomatic mission, eager to learn more about the species that had saved her life. Yes, Jor-El agreed. And terrifying. Remember, this is a world with gravity that will make every movement exhausting, weather that can kill in minutes, and biology that's fundamentally toxic to most of us. We'll need our environmental suits at all times. Worth it, Vecca said. To see where humans come from, to understand them better, it's worth any discomfort. The comm chimed. A familiar voice spoke. Confederate Vessel Unity, this is Earth Orbital Control. Welcome to Earth. We have you on approach for Station Unity, our primary diplomatic platform. Please follow the transmitted flight path. Acknowledged, Earth Control, the pilot responded. Another voice came through, younger, warmer. Captain Jor-El. Is that you? Jor-El smiled, his mandibles clicking in pleasure. Commander Chen. Got promoted. Captain Chen now. I'm stationed at Station Unity as the human liaison for first contact situations. When I heard a Van Nix delegation was coming, I hoped it might be you. The pleasure is mine, Captain. I look forward to seeing you again. Same here. And Captain, wait until you try Earth food. We've been preparing a feast. Nothing toxic to Van Nix biology, I promise. Just lots of flavors you've never experienced. As the Unity followed its flight path toward the station, Jor-El watched Earth continue to grow. He thought about Chen and her crew, about their strength and kindness, about the choice humanity had made to be protectors rather than conquerors. Sir, Vecca said quietly. Do you think this is the beginning of something important? Jor-El thought about the alliance treaty waiting to be signed, about the cultural exchange programs being planned, about the joint military exercises that would teach Confederate forces human tactics. But more than that, he thought about friendship. About two species from very different worlds finding common ground in shared values. About the possibility that the galaxy might become a little less dark, a little less cruel, because humans and Van Nix had chosen to stand together. Yes, Ensign, he said. I think this is the beginning of something very important indeed. On the view screen, Earth turned beneath them, a death world that had birthed a species tough enough to survive it and wise enough to rise above it. And waiting on the station above, Captain Sarachin prepared to welcome the first official Van Nix delegation to humanity's home. The galaxy was changing. And at the heart of that change was a simple truth that humans had learned through thousands of years of struggle: survival wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It was about being there for each other, about helping strangers in need, about choosing compassion over cruelty. It was about being stubborn enough to make the universe a better place, one rescue at a time.